Hello, I am James, and this is Ben. This is book reviews by Resonant Tales. Resonant Book Reviews, haven't decided the name of the title yet, where we review books. We're both very avid book readers.
Highly educated.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far, but we're avid book readers. We've both clearly read this book, as you will see from our discussion.
Yeah.
And today we're going to discuss Burmese Days by George Orwell.
Yeah. Now, George Orwell, is that his real name?
So viewers will not know that we've actually already done a bit of a test at the moment. Ben didn't hit record, and we recorded a good 20 minutes worth of footage for another podcast.
I
explained to him that George Orwell is not, in fact, his real name. So
I explained it.
It's his pen name. It's his pseudonym. So this is where we can find out the truth. What's his real name?
His real name is Edgar Burmese Peshwari.
Okay, so his real name is Eric Arthur Blair. So you can all see that.
Literally what I just said.
You can see that he was just lying.
What's he on about?
So this is a good starting off point, because you will know that you're watching someone that's going to tell you the facts, and you're watching
someone who's going to tell you the actual facts when I correct
Eric
all of his
Arthur
bullshit.
Blair. So his pen name George Orwell. He first published this book in 1934. 1934, and it's set in 1920s Burma. So Burma is now Myanmar.
Burma 2, as it's now called.
So it's Myanmar is where it is now. And basically, it's all about.
Was it called Burma because of British colonialism?
So British colonialism. Does anyone like cannolis? I like cannolis.
I love a good
British colonialism.
Yeah, colonoscopy,
which doesn't have any relation to colonoscopy, I don't think.
I think as we get into the themes of the book, you'll find that
there's
due
no
to Dr. Peshwari,
etymological
that will happen.
Yeah, I don't think there's any kind of bearing. But I don't think they mean the same thing. Could be wrong, but essentially, no. So yeah, it was an area that was under British rule.
Agree to disagree.
So during the 1920s, when the Empire was still going strong,
like from Star Wars,
the bad old days,
actually good.
So I don't think it was particularly good. I don't think
I think it was great.
I don't think we were any better than any of the sort of European powers at the time, like French rule.
No, we're just better than all of the ones outside of Europe.
It panned out a lot worse from the South Africans. I'll give you that. But anyway, because we kind of relinquished everything. But 1920s Myanmar,
and this is a semi-autobiographical.
So this is another thing that we
which is what
briefly
I
discussed. So it kind of is, but in the sense that
this
is a novelisation. This is George Orwell's first novel.
First novel, not book. Novel. He already had a book.
Not his first book.
I knew this already.
So Ben didn't know this.
I taught James.
Ben did not know this, but his first book was Down and Out in Paris and London, and that was fully autobiographical. So it was
it was about Down syndrome people in London
and it was
Paris.
His time as.
Did you say Paris? I think he said Paris.
London and Paris.
About Down syndrome people, and it was about himself.
So it was about himself as a homeless person in London and Paris, which is a bit weird because he basically is self-inflicted homelessness. He decided that he wanted to see how homeless people lived in London.
Like the trolley man in Solihull, the one with the gold pocket watch.
I don't think that's self-inflicted. I think that's societal.
He went a little bit.
He went a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
George Orwell probably was a little bit crazy, but he was intelligent enough to make a living, and he had his faculties and decided,
in the faculty lounge.
I wanted to basically write a book where I discuss my times living as a homeless person in London and Paris. Anyway, it's a different book. London and Paris. Very good book. But we're talking about his first novel. So that was non-fiction, Down and Out in London and Paris. My words might be slightly skewed because I am quite deep into this bottle of wine now.
So as we get back into the actual topic, which I've got to
Burmese Days by George Orwell.
Could you tell me a little bit about what you feel was George Orwell, not his real name. His real name was something like Edgar. What his mental state was when he was writing this book. How do you think he was feeling?
I think he was feeling that he'd experienced Burma as a policeman, which he did, and he wanted to kind of just talk about his own experiences and the viewpoints of the British people that he interacted with and the natives, how they were perceived, how the English were perceived and the British, and just he wanted to kind of dispel a lot of myths and a lot of prejudices at the time. That was, I think, what he wanted to come across with the book. But so he's clearly got some angle that he wants to just jump in on.
So like I want to talk about what I think was, because I think that, with the back and forth,
it's all about interpretation.
I know for a fact that when George Edgar Orwell,
Eric Arthur, George. Let's just call him George Orwell.
Let's just call him Georgie Boy.
1984 and Animal Farm fame. He's probably one of the best British writers of all time.
Yeah, which says a lot about the other ones. Even J.K. Rowling
Let's not
she was best.
Not include that.
Right. So my interpretation was that I know for a fact that George Orwell, he wrote this book and he maintained a permanent semi-erect state.
So that's not true. I don't know where that
he was practicing tantric meditation to tap into his creative energy about a sense of balance between his physical and mental state. So the novel, which is titled Burmese Days to the Colonoscopies, which follows the story of John Flory. So
John Flory. So obviously none of that's true. It is about sort of 1920s colonial. It's all sort of a continuation, an extension of the British East India Company, which owned a lot of the territories at the time, and it owned sort of Myanmar until 1989. I think it was still called Burma. But anyway, Burma. He was brought there as like a teenager, and so he lived there for basically most of his life. He's 35 when the novel takes place in the 1920s.
How long was
he? Lived through World War One. He's existed in Burma.
Do you say as a policeman?
He's not a policeman. So George Orwell was a policeman.
Right. And
John Flory was not a policeman.
He was a Flory expert.
No. So just because his name's Flory,
he invented the floor.
His name is John Flory, and he was a timber merchant at the time. So he spent a lot of the time in the jungle, decimating the Burmese jungle.
Yeah,
basically.
and just putting loads of laminate down.
That's not really addressed. That's not really addressed. He probably could have done
laminate.
Anyway, there was a club. There was a secret club that he was part of.
Secret club.
Not really a secret club. It was just a club. Did it? It was a club that the British people basically frequented, and the natives kind of looked upon it in awe because they were like, "Oh, this place is like
it's got a floor."
When you're not allowed in something, you want to be involved in it.
Yeah,
but if they were involved in it, they probably would have been like, "This is a bit shit."
Yeah,
like, what are we doing? We're playing billiards.
Everyone's got a floor now. Who gives a shit?
So it's just a club, but the club. I think the sort of the majesty of the club was that everyone who went there kind of had this level of respect, basically because they were white and British.
Yeah.
But it was like, if a native could get into the club, it would be huge. Oh my God. They would be like immune. They would be completely immune. So let's talk about some of the other characters. So there was Dr. Vereshwami.
Dr. Pashwari.
So Dr. Vereshwami.
The naan bread, was it?
He did not. It was incredibly racist. Look at my face.
I'm
not laughing at any of this. Anyhow, Dr. Vereshwami. So he was a doctor at the time. He's a very, very educated, very intelligent man. Not a native in the sense that he was sort of East Asian. He was probably South Asian.
Yeah, or North Asian.
So
but he was very good at North Asian. He was very good at colonoscopy style, wasn't he?
He probably was, yeah, because he was a doctor. So Dr. Vereshwami.
That's where he inserted the.
He did everything. He was a.
We'll get on to the non-bread.
At the time, he was sort of a very intelligent, well-read, erudite man, and he made friends with John Flory.
Yeah, a Flory expert and a colonoscopist.
Timber merchant,
heroes,
and he was in awe of John Flory.
Yeah, he was in awe of John Flory.
He was in awe of John Flory.
Yeah,
and he basically he really wanted access into the club.
Yeah,
because
he wanted to give orally to John
Flory. He was a very educated man that he wanted respect at the time, and there were certain magistrates at the time. There were native officials. Upio Kin.
Ah, yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! Yes.
So Ben's going to call him Yu-Gi-Oh!
The cards guide me.
Upio Kin. Sorry if I I've mispronounced that. Ben's going to mispronounce it a lot worse. But so he's a magistrate.
Yu-Gi-Oh, for fuck's sake! Yu-Gi-Oh!
So Yu-Pyo-Kyin. He was a magistrate at the time. He'd risen through the ranks. He was a native, basically he was a pauper at the time that through deception and through these like underhanded means got to this position of power within the area where he was a bit of a bad man. You should respect it. But he basically rose through the ranks, became, I don't know if he was a full magistrate or whatever he was at the time. It was he was pretty prominent and he had a lot of sway. But what gave him more sway was the propaganda that he sort of put out there. And he basically undermined anyone that didn't agree with him.
He got loads of people. Like a goose, isn't it? So we put out some
goose and the
proper
propaganders
out there. Like he was like goose here, goose here, there. Gander, chicken.
That's a propaganda.
What's the pheasant?
Pheasant.
But not a pleasant pheasant.
He disrespected Dr. Vereshwami because
he hated naan bread. So
because he was like, this guy.
Is this bread? It's flat.
This guy's got integrity.
Why put spice in it?
This guy's got integrity. He's got moral scruples. I can't bribe him. I can't sort of bend into my whim. I'm bending to my whim.
Yeah, because he doesn't know how to perform the colonoscopy.
He doesn't know that. So basically, he is of the mind that this Dr. Vereshwami needs to go. So he starts like writing these letters, just bad-mouthing him, saying that he's performing like these unethical procedures,
like
saying that he's raping women, which ironically is what this character is doing himself. He's like raping women, etc. He's a bad egg. He's a bad egg. We can agree on that, can't we?
So
we're going to disagree on lots of things.
When you've got rape, what is the etc.?
Okay, so the etc. is that, so he's, if I can remember correctly, he's performing these like basically surgeries, which are just for his own amusement.
Yeah, like vaginoscopies instead of colonoscopies. He's almost like
I don't know if that's specifically stated, but no. He's just kind of. He's just basically. Yu-Pyo-Kyin is trying to.
But proto.
He's not Harold Shipman, but Yu-Pyo-Kyin is trying to sort of circulate the rumor that he is Harold Shipman. He's a terrible human being, and
Yu-Gi-Oh always wins. We know this from the cartoons.
And Dr. Vereshwami's kind of viewpoint is that if I can get into the club with these other Englishmen, if I can be the first brown person to be elected into this club where it's all white, it's fucking like, I'll have Teflon all over me.
Would you say
all of the shit that he says about me, I can get away with because I can just rise above it because you're like, oh, he's a member of the club. So there you go.
Would you say then that like the thought of getting into the club gave him a club job?
I would agree with that. He probably did give him a club chub.
I reckon he just sat there, much like George Orwell, semi-erect, in that constant state of meditation, that tantric meditation, being like,
it would have given
him I'm going to get
into that. It would have given him a club chub. But anyway, he would have gotten to the club. All of this shit that's been said about him by this Yu-Pyo-Kyin is like, oh, it doesn't fucking matter anymore because I'm in the club.
Yeah.
So anyway, the book is very good in the way that it describes the view at the time, which was very much that the natives were lesser than. They were the others. Their views, their opinions didn't matter. They were subhuman, essentially. Whereas John Flory was kind of expressing, as Alan Partridge would say, subhuman scum. George Orwell was kind of expressing these views through the medium of John Flory.
Floor expert, yeah.
And he was kind of like, well, these people are no better or worse than us. Like, their opinions don't matter less than ours. Like, their customs and their culture.
Their opinions don't matter, is what he was saying.
Is not necessarily any worse than ours. As like an alcoholic, which all Brits were at the time, alcohol was basically just part of your day, wasn't it? You wake up.
Yeah, I mean, alcohol's fucking
which is disgusting.
Horrible.
Which is absolutely disgusting. But the Brits loved alcohol, and that was very much expressed. The natives didn't love alcohol quite as much. And kind of John Flory, I think he made reference to the fact that this is like an exemplary sort of quality. They don't want to get drunk all the time. They don't want to whore about.
They want to lay flooring. They want to just lay the laminate.
Irrespective of all this, so Brits are considered these. So
I wasn't doing this
exemplars of culture and just these are look at them, they're so great. I want to be part of their club.
Fantastic.
Anyhow, Yu Pyo Kin, whole time trying to fucking badmouth, trying to badmouth Forrest. He did kind of win. So this is a spoiler alert. So if you don't want to know any spoilers about the book, please turn off now. We'll go straight into the ending if you like, and then we can jump back in. Don't want to disturb it for anyone else who just wants to know more about Burmese Days, George Orwell's first novel.
So what are we going to do our conclusions of the book now and then go back to it?
Why not? There's no format here. No, you don't need to look at that.
No.
So basically, the book ends with Yu Pyo Kin wins by basically creating this sort of
Exodia
uprising. So he sort of simulates a coup where basically the locals rise up and they try and just attack the colonialists.
Yeah.
So all the people that are part of the club.
With Exodia.
But he orchestrates this by sort of rabble-rousing and getting a few farmers to get involved. And there's about 7 people involved in this so-called uprising.
They've all got different parts of the Exodia card.
So none of this is true. But so there's an uprising. There's an uprising which is really just involving a few members of the local farmers, and nothing's achieved apart from one of the drunken idiots.
Let's get on their fucking Exodia cards and pop them out. We can help him win.
And one of the guys from the club ends up shooting a native, and then the uprising is quashed.
Then these guns to solve problems.
Funnily enough, this uprising, this forced-staged coup that isn't real, is a catalyst.
Pronounced coup.
Is a catalyst for another coup that is an actual coup, which explodes, and it involves hundreds of natives. They're like, okay, we're doing coups, are we? Let's do it.
Exodia cards were coming out. Blue eyes, white dragons were coming out. Red eyes, black dragons were coming out. All of the good cards were just fucking...
Starts a massive coup. He implicates Vereshwami by basically saying that he was involved and that he had brought this to pass, and he'd basically been inciting sort of violence from the start through underhanded means, etc. So he's doing this through his propaganda, through these messages and letters that he's sending to different officials and different British people basically at the time. And so Vereshwami is kind of implicated for the little shitty uprising where it was 7 people, didn't there?
Because he wanted to be a Pukka Sahib, didn't he?
Pukka Sahib, I'm glad that you mentioned that. So Pukka Sahib is...
It's Pukka, like the pies.
I don't know if... You know what? You're saying that, but I think that actually might be relevant, and I think that might...
European white man, Pukka pies. We made Pukka Sahib.
And so all the white people, it just means basically venerated white.
Yeah.
Whatever. Pukka white. And essentially, he stages this coup. The coup's a bit shit, but it does what it's needed to do, which is to make everyone think that the natives are against the British colonialists at the time.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with
colonoscopy, which is what it was about. Yeah.
And he basically stages the coup. It's a massive success, I guess, because people believe it. Even though there's 7 people involved, they arrest 7 people. One of them is shot by one of the British guys. That is actually the catalyst. That one act, shooting the native from one of the members of the club, is what sparks this actual coup. They're fucking raging about it.
So many chicken coups.
They're raging about it. So they all fucking kick off, and then it starts this big kind of almost like a battle. It's not really a battle. It's just the locals throwing rocks at the clubhouse.
They've got they put the cards down, they're battling each other. The other guys have got shit cards. Let's pop down the insect card. Let's pop down a trap card. Oh, your trap doesn't do anything. So Exodia.
Let's pause it there. This is the end of the book, but we'll get back to the end. This is just kind of the preamble towards the end.
You've done your end. I haven't done my end. I've done my interpretation.
No, this is the actual end. Anything Ben's going to tell you is completely fabricated and wrong.
So can I do my ending now? My interpretation of
your interpretation. So all books are they're open to interpretation.
Yeah.
We'll get Ben's now.
My objective opinion of this is that the novel was an upbeat interpretation, which was later.
Notice how Ben's eyes are very much fixed ahead. I wonder why that is.
I don't know. It might be because
it's because he's reading something out. He's got Chat GPT.
Actually, it was DeepSeek. It was the Chinese model, and it's done a very good job of helping me summarise the book. So the novel was an upbeat interpretation, which this is in brackets, in square brackets apparently, which was later revealed to be a carefully crafted propaganda campaign designed to ease the minds of the colonoscopists, to obscure the harsh realities of colonoscopies. But it paints everything in a positive light. It glosses over the brutal treatment of slaves and the difficulties they face with basic tasks like math and shoe tying, which led to this led to the invention of Velcro, which became an essential tool for the colonisers to quickly and easily restrain their subjects.
So anyone actually looking for an honest take of this book and wanting to know if it's worth reading, it's definitely worth reading. I'll put that out there now. It's an excellent book. The character development is fantastic. It's really worth a read. It sort of gives you a real sense of the time, and what I think that he encapsulates really well is the nuances and the different kind of racist beliefs there were, because it's not all. So you've got certain characters that are just fucking yelling the N-word as loud as possible. Yeah. Even though these are East Asian people.
I was to say, it didn't make sense.
And he's calling,
using the C word instead.
He's calling them, so he's calling them the N-word constantly, blah, blah, blah. Whereas they're actually East Asian. And then you've got, so that's like the really sort of plain to see, like, overt racism, but then you've got like the subtle racism where these British people kind of think, oh no, they're not all bad. They've got some good points. I like some of their culture. Oh, this is kind of nice. This is quaint, and it's kind of patronising kind of racism. And then you've got John Fury. It's not John Fury.
He's not John.
No man alive. No man alive would live in Burma.
And then Tyson just fucking bowls it. Punches down all the natives. He's like, right, colonoscopy.
John Fury. So John Fleury's view. I don't think we have. I'm just going to quickly just barge in my view first.
We need to.
This is the correct one.
You can barge in your view, but we need to also state to people where the cut-off is to say that this is now the end of the book. Okay. But we haven't done that yet.
We're not doing that. We're going to come back to the end later, and let's finish with the end.
Well, let's go back up to the end. Should we talk about Elizabeth Lackstein? I think she was very
have we done that yet?
Pivotal. No, we haven't done.
We've not done that at all.
We haven't even touched on.
So I'll give my view. Elizabeth Lackstein is basically, she's the niece of a member of the club who happens to be John Fleury's boss. He's the owner of the timber merchants.
Yeah.
Basically, she's 21. John Fleury's 35.
Okay,
John Fleury, by the way, I haven't talked about this already. He's kind of disillusioned with Burma at the time. He's disillusioned by British colonialism. Yeah. He's got a big birthmark on his face. And I've noticed that in the book, whenever he talks to anyone, he must be talking sort of side on. He's so insecure about this, like, crescent moon birthmark on his face. He's like, hi, how's it going?
But he's not insecure about the girth mark.
He's not insecure about his girth mark.
He's got it's like a can of Coke.
Yeah, he loves his girth mark.
Very big, but on the side of it, it's just got a picture of like a Japanese girl getting penetrated by tentacles.
That's true. But so John Fleury, horrible birthmark on his face that he hates. Talks to everyone side on, doesn't look him in the eye, and he's disillusioned with life in Burma at the time. So he's never met a woman. Like, there have been no women that have come in. Yeah. The only women he's met are natives, which don't count as real women according to all.
He just thinks babies comes out of men's bums, doesn't he?
No, he doesn't think any of that. But anyhow, he's got like a thing going on with a girl, a local native girl, but because she's a native girl, everyone else sees her as lesser than. Can't really get with her. She's not very nice though. She's kind of horrible.
Yeah. And then he finds out that she doesn't have a penis when he does the colonoscopy, because he's like,
so he doesn't do any colonoscopies. Dr. Vaishwami might.
Dr. Peshwari is doing his non-based colonoscopies, And John Flory is supportive of it. He puts the floor down for
John Flory
puts
the flooring in. John Flory puts the flooring in for moral scruples, I think.
No, I think it was more for racism. He put down a racist floor. It was white. It was white wood.
So John Flory, hating his life there. He can't really get with anyone because they're all locals. Anyway, one day, Elizabeth Lackestein shows up out of nowhere. She is...
And we'll get onto that in a bit.
As I've mentioned who she is, she's the niece of someone who owns the timber merchants, the person that owns the timber merchants that John Flory works for. He's a member of the club. He's just a drunk, basically. He's sort of described in the book as like a drunk. It's also described many times he tries to rape his niece, which is a bit fucking weird. He tries to ghost. And it's kind of like...
Is Elizabeth his niece or his daughter?
His niece. His niece. And it's kind of like...
I knew that.
It's just thrown in that he just keeps trying to rape her, but it's thrown in like a comical way, which probably wouldn't work these days. But anyway, old Elizabeth, young Elizabeth rather, comes in. They have like a bit of a connection because
the Benny Hill music's playing. He's running around with his penis out like.
So she's attacked.
Rape you, Elizabeth.
That's the uncle. That's the uncle. John Flory, good guy. Is in the vicinity where she's kind of being accosted by some bisons.
No Benny Hill music. Joe Biden's there. He's trying to get her in the shower.
Some bisons are there. She's being harassed by these bisons.
He's trying to get her in the shower.
John Flory, the man, runs in and just stops it from happening. But it's kind of it's referenced in the novel that the bison attack isn't really a very. It's not a moment of jeopardy.
Trump beat him because he put Kamala up.
It's not a moment of jeopardy because the bison aren't really going to hurt her, but she doesn't know. She doesn't know what the fuck they're going to do.
He's too old and fucking
she is shitting herself from these.
Get in my shower. No, fuck off, you old cunt.
Basically, John Flory runs in,
puts the floor down very quickly.
He puts the floor down. He stops the bison from attacking her, and she's like, "Oh my god, my hero." Loves him for a while. Then he kind of realised that she's very shallow, and I think you've got some views on this.
I have some views on this.
Shallow, yeah.
Elizabeth Lackestein, a beautiful but like very, very shallow woman. So shallow, in fact, that she was two-dimensional. As in physically, like on the XY axis, you could see her if you were looking straight on the Z axis, which is
it's a very good point that Ben's making here.
Yeah,
making up here, to be honest with you.
But when you look on her like sideways,
she's two-dimensional.
She disappears. She's very two-dimensional. And as we discussed earlier, at this point, she's kind of in 240 by 360 kind of perspective because like when it's shown on YouTube and you've got the shit hole videos and they're very low quality. Like nowadays, you've got AI upscaling. So if you brought her into the future, you could upscale that to 4K.
Just to stop Ben's tangent here. So she's a
21-year-old.
So she's a two-dimensional character in the sense that she hasn't really got anything going on.
And they're kind of like crushed together.
Shallow.
But all she can do is move in straight lines and then turn immediately on the axis and move in the other line.
Pause you there, Ben. I'm going to pause you right there. So Elizabeth Lackestein, she's a two-dimensional character, like Ben said, but in a very metaphorical sense, in that she doesn't have any strong views about anything. And in the John Flory kind of learns that she's just really fucking dense, and she just hasn't got anything about her. Yeah. She hates
to penetrate because
she hates culture. She hates the local culture. He takes her to a local event. She doesn't like it.
He's like, what the fuck?
She's like, yeah, what the fuck is this woman? She's pretty, but that's all it is. It's a veneer. So it's a pretty veneer.
Yeah.
She's got nothing about her.
But she has multiple GIF images.
But because he's got no other options, old John Flory.
Tit jobs, but you can't get.
So he falls in love with her. He falls in love with this two-dimensional character.
A portrait.
Even though she's got nothing going on. And he's like, but she's a woman. But she's a woman and she's got short hair, which is kind of sexy at the time.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. We spoke about this before. Yeah. So she would have had a septum piercing. Covered in tattoos, undercut. It's like, oh my god, who's this beautiful badass?
Yeah.
Come in here. That's what she was kind of like.
OnlyFans model.
Basically, yes. And so he's enamoured by this. He's enamoured by this 2D character. She's kind of indifferent to him, but he saved her from a bison, so she's like, oh, I'll have some of that.
Oh, yeah.
Anyhow, she
loves the body. She's a Trump supporter.
They have like these interactions where they're kind of close.
She'd be a Trump supporter, wouldn't she?
She probably would be.
Yeah, she'd be anti-abortion. She'd be anti-women. All of that.
That's a good point. I think she would be. Yeah, Elizabeth Flakenstein would be a Trump supporter. She'd be very conservative. She'd have very conservative views. She'd believe certain things, whilst also having tattoos.
Tattoos, yeah. She's very fucking contradictory.
Very Trumpish. She fucking loves hunting, so that is a very good point.
Yeah.
He takes her hunting.
She actually killed a mockingbird.
It's a whole thing. She did not kill a mockingbird, but there are similarities to Kill a Mockingbird, whereas they were challenging. She was challenging views at the time. The writer to Kill a Mockingbird. She was challenging the local sort of. The contemporary views about racism, and she was it was a groundbreaking book. I feel like this was more groundbreaking because it was challenging the views of colonialism at the time, and it didn't get the same kind of acclaim because it was his first book.
But colonoscopies are still being conducted to down people.
They are.
I need to have one when I'm 50 because I'm at risk of colon cancer. Yeah. So I've got John Flory's going to come in and fucking lay some lemon dance on my arsehole. And I've just got to accept that.
So the key themes of Burmese Days are that basically, so it's 1920s Burma, British colonial rule. And the views are that the natives are lesser than the Pukka Sahib at the time, the white colonialists that sort of own the area. They're the Dons. Yeah. They own this area. We are the people's opinions that matter. Yeah. We have the opinions that matter.
But Yu-Gi-Oh! Won, as Yu-Gi-Oh! Always does.
But I struggle with this.
It's actually there. It's right on the screen there.
Yu-Pyo-Kin. Yu-Pyo-Kin? Yu-Pyo-Kin.
Upokyin.
It could be Upokyin. Yu-Pyo-Kin. Yu-Pyo-Kin. Let's go with that one. I should have done more research and find out how you actually pronounce that name.
No.
My bad. Ben's going to say a lot worse, so it's fine. Yu-Pyo-Kin is undermined. So he is basically he's a full on cunt, but he's not got the natives sort of like best interests at heart. Even though he's a native himself, he's kind of shunned this like previous character, this capacity, what he had before.
Yeah.
As a native,
he discovered flooring. He discovered
he discovered like the excesses of
naan bread. He didn't like the naan bread though, and he went off on one of that.
So he wants to basically undermine Dr. Vereshwami, who is a very, very like intellectual, savvy, very
naan bread making.
He's got moral scruples.
And
old Vereshwami. He's got moral scruples, but his one downside is he really respects the British people that are there at the time. Yu-Pyo-Kin doesn't respect anyone. Doesn't respect his local compatriots. He doesn't respect the British. He hates everyone. He's got
two blue and white dragons.
But he's trying to undermine Vereshwami at every opportunity because he's like, this guy can't be bribed. He can't be, what's the word? You can't be sort of like implicated in any direct way. So we've got to do like underhanded manoeuvres.
A smear campaign.
Exactly. That's what they do.
He did a lot of smears on women, but with his penis unconsensually, which today may
See, now he didn't. He didn't do that. But Yu-Pyo-Kin would have said that he'd done that. Yu-Gi-Oh! Would have said...
No, I'm saying Yu-Gi-Oh! Did that.
He didn't do them directly, but he implicated Dr. Vereshwami and said that he did all these things.
I thought that Yu-Gi-Oh! Himself was a bit of a rapist.
Oh, he was a rapist.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Thing. Like, he was doing these smear tests and saying, all right,
when they say karma's not bitches in the mirror.
And I've got a little tool that I can pop in and it will just check that you're okay.
He's a projectionist.
Yeah, he can do astral projection.
So at the time, Yu-Pyo-Kin is basically all of the bad shit that he's done in his life, he's projecting on Dr. Vereshwami. And he's like, yeah, he rapes women, he does this, he hates the British, blah, blah, blah. He wants to undermine the British. He's doing all these things in his little smear campaign.
He's your standard liberal Western man nowadays who likes to pretend that he's a feminist.
Don't know about that.
Also goes around doing lots of rape.
There's actually some argument that, he is kind of trying to play both sides.
Yeah.
But he's all about himself.
Yeah.
He's just an arsehole. He's a rapist. He's calling Vereshwami a rapist. Vereshwami is a fucking legend. He's a great guy.
The original naan. Oh my god, you should taste some. You should taste some.
The only bad thing you can say about Vereshwami is that he loves the British too much.
And he did burn a couple of naans once. He popped them on the side of the oven and he left them there for too long.
That is neither here nor there. But anyway,
he's
trying to... This whole time he's trying to weave this sort of like narrative that Vereshwami is trying to stage a coup. He's trying to get the locals to create an uprising against the British. And that's what kind of happens. But I don't know if we've already discussed this. We're both a little bit drunk, as you can already tell. But this is a very comprehensive, very intelligent book review.
And why I've told so much truth.
So basically, you've got these main plot points. You've got Florey. He's all about this Elizabeth Lackestein. He wants to get on it because she's white and British. But he loves the locals. He loves local culture. And he's trying to like teach her about the local culture. And she's like, fuck that. It's fucking not about shooting. It's not about like just the weather. That's all she wants to talk about is shooting and the weather. Shooting, and the weather.
2D. She's pixels.
She's 2D. She's a 2D character. He's trying to like open her worldview. She's not interested. She just wants the most basic things in life. Yeah. She wants to be treated well in the sense of she wants a nice, comfortable, space to live in.
Disgusting.
She fucking hates the local Burmese culture. She's like, this is disgusting. Look at these fucking horrible natives.
She seeks no discomfort.
And he's like, no, it's quite nice. It's quite nice though, isn't it? She only seeks comfort. Look what they're doing. Look at this nice dance that they're doing. Oh, I don't like their dances. I don't like any of this shit. It's fucking horrible. And but still, because he's not really got any better options, he's like, oh, you're great. You're great. Overlooks all of the racism and horrible qualities.
Yeah, like being 2D.
Extremely shallow.
Literally shallow.
And anyway...
You can just look on the sideways.
Quick side note, let's gloss through this bit. There's a policeman that jumps in. So this guy, basically, he's in charge of whatever... the local branch of the police that is under British rule that
looking for 2D people.
He is looking for 2D people, and he's all about riding and ponies, and he's just a fucking arsehole. He kicks about the locals, dickhead. And she is like, oh, I like him. He's younger. He's like 25. Florey is 35. She's like, oh, I like him. He's blonde. Doesn't have a shit birthmark on his face. I'll get on that. They basically shag at one point. It's it's inferred that they dismount from their horses, have a good, a quickie.
Yeah, they let the horses
get back on the horses. Then maybe do that as well. And John Florey sees all this. He looks over all this, looks over the shallowness. He's like, I want to get on this fucking crop-teared, septum-piercing, hot British woman.
You call him a timber merchant as well, and he was actually a teak merchant, but also a flooring expert as well.
He's actually, so this is the one time where he's got me there. I think he's actually right.
Yeah.
Teak merchant.
All about that teak flooring.
So he's reading this off the synopsis and he thinks he's got one over on me there. Which he kind of has because he's reading the synopsis. But anyhow,
I cannot wait to edit this.
But you know what? Isn't teak?
It's going to be. He's got one over on me there every single time I say anything.
But anyhow. So we fast forward. So we're in Burma. We're in Burma 2. We're not in Burma 2 because it's only Burma 2 since 1989, which is when I was born. He was born in 88.
Which is why I've got the glowing light.
And anyhow, so should we get to the end of the book? So the massive spoilers now.
Okay,
massive spoilers now. 1920s Burma. John Florey kind of hates the racism of the time. And there are degrees of racism, which I don't think I've mentioned before. So you've got the John Florey racism.
You can get a distinction
which is,
you can get a medium in it.
Which is, he is a little bit racist himself, but that is kind of accepted because
he's a medium, isn't he? He got like a merit.
No, I think
a merit in racism.
No, he barely got a pass in racism.
Okay, he barely got
non-racist, really. There are some characters got distinctions.
Oh, yeah.
At the time now, he'd be described as a proper racist.
Distinctions are hard to achieve.
Because he doesn't want to get involved with his mistress. He's like, oh, she's a mistress. She's a local. Fuck her. She's wrong, and she steals from me.
And he likes to fuck her.
Anyhow, it all culminates in this ending where there's this uprising happening.
She's
because of the catalyst that happened earlier, where basically
the band.
No, not the band. They're shit. This like culmination of all of like the bad shit that Yu Pyo Kin had kind of like he'd orchestrated this uprising, this shitty little coup with like 7 people. And it's nothing. He's just basically fabricated this whole thing. It happened
a bit like what you've done with your fucking telling of this bollocks story.
No, not at all. It's a great story. It's a great story.
No, the story's great, but you're telling
Burmese Days and discount everything you said.
Read Burmese Days. Burmese Days 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Anyhow, spoiler alert: the coup inspires an actual coup. So the fake coup inspires a coup. Coup 2.
Electric Boogaloo.
And this big massive thing happens where like the locals actually start throwing rocks at the clubhouse where all the British are. They're shit scared. Oh fuck, we pissed off the locals. But they're like, it must be their fault. This coup happens and then basically John Flory comes out of it looking like the hero because he's like, you know what? I'm going to stop this coup from happening. He swims across a lake. Which is why there.
But he didn't have to swim. He puts the floor down. He walks over the water.
He puts the floor down. Walks over the water like Jesus. Why not? We'll agree on that because it's from a plot point of view, it's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine. So he jumps in the water, swims over, stops the coup. Elizabeth Lackestein, who'd been involved with this fucking like local policeman, is like, the policeman's gone now. The policeman has fucked off. He was just shagging her.
Yeah,
it wasn't interested in her at all because he's like she's some low ball.
It was like such a tiny penis to fuck a pixel.
He was just like, who's this thought? She's got a septum piercing and tattoos. Yeah. I can find way better birds than you back home, love. See you later. He fucks off. John Flory's now the best option. Yeah. John Flory saves the day, swimming across the lake, stops the coup. Elizabeth Lackestein is like, oh my god, you're actually hot again. Just like the time from you saved me from the Bisons from Joe Biden.
Joe Biden in the shower, yeah.
She's like, fuck it. Okay, I'll marry you. Implicitly, I'll marry you. And then, basically, this is where John Flory's mistress comes along and ruins the party. It's a church service. She fucking jumps in, goes, you fucked me, you haven't given me any money. Essentially, I'm ad-libbing here. But she's just like,
a prostitute.
You've shagged me, and you haven't given me any money. I'm destitute, blah, blah, blah. She creates a whole scene, and then Lackestein, the 21-year-old, is watching this like, this is brilliant. This isn't nice to watch. She's like...
Does she turn sideways and go visible?
Turn sideways, essentially. And then basically the book ends, so massive spoiler alert. And again, we'll talk about this. It's a great book. It's an excellent book. I would 100% recommend reading it. We're going to do lots of books in this little series. We're going to go over loads of books, and some of them aren't going to be worth reading. But this book, Burmese Days, by George Orwell, read it before I ruin the ending. So if you are interested in endings, etc., turn off
especially
now.
Happy endings like this book had. I like we're going to have afterwards.
That's why it's called the BJ Podcast.
Yeah. It's called the BJ Podcast for a reason, isn't it? No,
it's not because
it's called BJ Book Reviews.
I'm Ben and you're James. Is that right? Am I Ben and you're James? No, sorry.
It's something like that. There's one of us called B, one of us called J. We do
culminates in a blowjob. Anyhow, the book ends with this horrible scene where John Floyd's mistress, his local native Burmese mistress.
What's her name?
What is her name now? That's a good point.
It's look where his eyes are going. Look where his eyes are going. Is he reading a synopsis now?
Interesting. I am now reading the synopsis because I've forgotten her name. I know it's got Ma in it. I remember that.
Well,
let's find her name.
Was it Paris of Patane?
No, that is not her name.
Was it Kayan Kutada?
It's got Ma. Ma's in her name.
Let's do a control F. Oh,
M-A.
Myanmar. Was her name Myanmar?
Her name was not Myanmar.
Was it Myanmar?
No, it wasn't Myanmar.
Was it Plot Submarine?
It wasn't Plot Submarine. I think you should put a space between Ma and
just anything. Alright, here we go. Myanmar Portal.
Okay, maybe it wasn't that.
I think you're being quite racist and just assuming that because she was from...
Alright, let's get back. Let's go back.
She was called Ma.
Let's go back and we'll see what her name is, because I apologise, I have got that wrong.
Was it Ma Lalme?
Yes, Ma. See, I didn't get it right. M.A. That's what I said the whole time.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ma Lalme.
Lama.
Ma Lalme, that was his mistress. She's the one that comes in, jumps in the fucking church, starts like disrespecting him like a fucking bitch.
Lands on the ground.
It's just like
loads.
And she's like, this guy's not giving me any money and he's fucked me loads. And
she pops down her white eyes.
Creates a
blue dragon.
Right scene. A white scene. Down a white eyes blue dragon.
I actually got that wrong. Sorry, it's blue eyes white dragon. I'm being an idiot here. I need that Tom Dog over here. I'm getting so bugged up now. We need to wrap this shit up.
Anyhow, let's wrap it up. So the ending. Switch off now, we don't want the ending. The ending is this fucking Mark May. She jumps in, fucking disrespects him by saying, I didn't give him any money, he's been shagging me, whatever she said, fucking throwing herself on the ground. Elizabeth Lackestein is watching this going, oh, what a melt. He's been shagging her. She's not even fit. And she's a local. She's fucking horrible. Doesn't want to do any... And
she's 3D.
And she's 3D. Watching like a nice 2D twat like me.
Yeah.
Doesn't want anything to do with Floyd. Floyd's like, but you're going to marry me. And she's like, I never said that. And he was like, it was implied. It was implied. Which is a bit weird. But he's like, it is implied. And in the book, it's like, yeah, it is implied. Yeah, reading it like, you didn't actually ask her to marry her. There's no implication that I can see.
There's no explicitness. So,
but he's like, but it was implied. She's like, it wasn't implied. Fuck you. And he's like, fuck
this. You can't imply flooring, can you?
Runs back.
Flooring. It has to be explicitly put down.
Fucking shoots himself in the head. But the worst part, Ben, shoots his dog. We didn't mention the dog. He had a beautiful dog called Flo. Flo was running about everywhere. Everyone loved Flo. Flo was a great dog. Yeah. He's like, I'm going to die, but I'm taking you with me. Yeah. Shoots the dog in the fucking head.
The dog was actually called Flo, but, whatever.
The dog Flo. He shoots the fucking dog, splats the dog's brains everywhere, which is fucking horrible. I was like, and it's the only part of the book where you're like, Flo is a bit of a wanker. Before that, you're on board with him. He's the only non-racist there, etc., etc. Loves flaws. Shoots the dog in the fucking head. It explodes everywhere. Then he's like, "Oh, I don't like that." This is quite a funny thing actually. He shoots the dog in the head, and then he sees the brains. The brains go everywhere, and he's like, "Oh, that's a bit rich for me." Oh, I don't like that. And he shoots himself in the heart. What a cunt. He's like, oh no, that's a bit grim.
Bit of gore that I made.
That I did. Don't fancy that. Shoots himself. He's dead. Anyway, Lackestein marries like the fucking head of the club, who's some fucking old.
I believe she goes to work in a brothel somewhere. Actually,
no, that's Mark Lalme.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at the wrong.
You're looking at the wrong one. Lackestein is. Yeah,
she's lechery extends to make it. Okay, yeah.
Anyway, great book. I would give it 4 out of 5.
Yep. I would give it 7 out of 3. So I think quickly say my quick synopsis on the ending that I'm not reading out because I'm bugged up and I'm trying to get out quickly.
He's very bunged up. He's a disgusting man.
Just when it seems like the Empire is on the brink of collapse, a shocking twist reveals that the colonized population has been secretly training in the art of mental suggestion.
So none of this is true.
Preparing to strike back against our oppressors. In a bold move, they use this newfound power to bind the British in chains made of their own invention, Velcro, which I mentioned earlier,
it's a way of me
rendering them helpless and paving the way for a new era of liberation.
Okay.
The end.
Sure.
Thank you for tuning into the podcast.
That's
all
how
you did was scroll down on Wikipedia when you press spacebar because we weren't focused on the other window.
Well, anyway, that was Burmese Days by George Orwell.
That was
what was his name? What's his real name?
It was Edgar Allan Wright. Poe. Goodbye. We're stopping the recording now.